All right. Hi, YouTube. This is Ava Lamore. I'm going to be reviewing Young, Famous, and African, Season 1, Episode 2. So I'm starting this series. If you haven't seen my first review, or if you're just getting into Young, Famous, and African, then you can watch that, and I'll probably link it somewhere. And I will get into the review. And then also I'm wearing my favorite cat tee. So cute, right? So cute. So cute. I love cats. So the episode 2 opens with Diamond asking Nadia out on a date to go car shopping with him. And, he invites her to choose his next car. And so that's pretty much it. Like, not much happened in that scene. So we move right into Khanyi and Nadia. So Khanyi is doing a mermaid goddess photo shoot. And if you see me looking over at the left, it's because I was taking notes while I was watching the episode so I could remember like my thoughts and stuff. So that's what you see. All right. So anyways, so if you remember, Khanyi and Nadia are friends, and so Khanyi is doing her photo shoot. She looks amazing. So she invited Nadia, and Nadia pulls up with this hair. Like, her hair is like bright orange, yellow. It's really cute. It's giving Haley from Paramore. So if you know that reference, and you know like Haley's like signature like bright red orange hair, I was like, this is cute. It really suited Nadia, and I like Nadia's style. Like, it's very hip-hop. It's very hip-hop for a rapper. She's a rapper, so it tracks. But anyway, so we just get straight into it. Nadia is vexed about how Annie treated Khanyi, and like I said in my last recap, I think that Annie made a poor choice going after Khanyi for her mothering skills, because she was invited there by other people. She didn't know Khanyi, basically. So whether it was Swanky who invited her, Nadia, either way, she was a guest of other guests. And so, I thought it was kind of an interesting choice. And I called it because Nadia was pissed, but she did express that. But so was Khanyi. But, Khanyi she didn't feel like it wasn't anything that she couldn't move past, and you'll see why. And so anyways, now Khanyi is like breaking down the conversation that she overheard, or she sat and heard when Annie was talking to Andile, and Annie was revealing to Andile about her broken marriages and the outside babies, and Nadia was just like, didn't they just meet that first night? And that's what I was thinking. Like, that is a lot to offload on somebody. But, look, Annie understood the assignment. She came right out the gate with the tea. So we got it in that first episode. So, anyways, they get past that. And then, and Khanyi is just talking about how, she just can really empathize with Annie and how this is a lot. And I don't know. That was just interesting. But they move into, I think Khanyi had asked if Nadia had talked to anybody else from the party. And Nadia mentions that she's talked to Di. She's calling him Di now, Diamond. And it turns out that Khanyi knew what she was doing, putting Nadia on with Diamond. So, I don't know. That was just interesting to me, because remember how in my last recap, I was just so confused about why Khanyi was trying to matchmake Nadia with Diamond, but there was some sort of connection at the end of the episode. And now, skip forward to the second episode, they are talking, they're going on the date. So, Khanyi knew what she was doing. So, and in her confessional, Khanyi basically just makes this she just talks about how men used to basically fight to the death for the woman they wanted. So she feels like Nadia can have her Mr. Nadia in America and Mr. Nadia in Africa. I thought that was really funny. So anyways, next scene is Swanky and Annie. And so Swanky and freaking Frack, they're together. And so Swanky has chartered a helicopter to fly them to the restaurant they're going to. And we also find out from Swanky that everything that happened at the party really stressed Annie out, so she wants to go home. But today they're going to go to lunch, and they're taking a helicopter. And so, anyways, you know, Annie is just expressing how, because I think Swanky brings up, like, all of the conversations that were happening, and Annie just is expressing how she's, like, shaken up about the conversation that was had about, like, the kids and Kanye's child. And, you know, I appreciate that Swanky was trying to give Annie some perspective about being so judgmental of Kanye and the fact that her daughter is 15 years old and she's her neighbor and has her own apartment. And he's basically just trying to express to Annie that, like, everyone is different. You know, he mentions that, hey, like, Kanye is dating. She's not necessarily, like, yes, she might be in a serious relationship, but nonetheless, she's dating. She can't introduce her daughter to every man that she's dating. And then Annie is just like, oh, well, you know, it looks like they're pretty serious. They seem cute together. And Swanky was just like, yes, they seem serious, but serious relationships have broken up, Annie, you know? And he's just like, you know, we know what kind of mother you are. You don't see your children for a day, 2 days, 3 days, and you're panicking and throwing up, but not everybody's like that. And I just feel like that, I'm just glad that it's not necessarily that I agree or disagree, but it's more so that I think it is important to kind of, like, keep an open mind outside of, like, things that are, like, actively hurting and harming people. I think that I appreciated the fact that Swanky was able to level with Annie and kind of just be like, hey, like, before you judge too much, consider this, you know? So anyways, we go to the next scene, and now we're introduced to Kanye and her daughter. And what's her daughter's name? Let me see. Khan's. Kanye and Khan's, her daughter. And so Kanye is going over to, she says she's going over to her neighbor's house, which was really cute because she's going to Khan's house. And so right off the bat in that scene, Kanye asks her daughter if she's a bad mom. And now look, the editing in a lot of reality shows, like, gone are the days of not recognizing that these shows are scripted in a lot of ways. Like, there is realistic elements to it, but there is scripts, there are storyboards and stuff. So when Kanye asked her daughter if she was a bad mom, it appeared that Khan's paused, but she did say no. So that could have been editing, but either way, she did say no. And then we cut to a green screen confessional. No, it wasn't a green screen. It's just a confessional that Khan's has. The 15-year-old daughter of Kanye, she has her own confessional. And I'm just going to be honest, like, I did not like that. I just felt like, okay, she's in the scene with her mother, and they're discussing, like, her parenting and stuff, and not in the context of the party or what anybody else was saying, but I just didn't feel like it was necessary for her to have her own confessional. And only because I feel like this is a show about adults, and from what I can gather, these are like 25 and up year adults. So, because I know Kayleigh's 28. I don't know how old Nadia is, but I know at the least Kayleigh is 28. So, these are like full-grown adults. So, I just feel like Khan's just doesn't have a place in the show. And, you know, I just feel like adults can consent to scrutiny, but children can't. So, you know, I'm to give Kanye grace, because this is what I imagine the impetus was behind it, was for Khan's to be able to get a check and to, you know, get some level of exposure, I guess, or like, you know, some like cred at school. But I was kind of like, okay, no, get this baby off the show. I don't want to hear from the baby. She's so cute. She is beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous girl. Love the relationship with her and her mother, but her and Khanyi, that like how Khanyi is mothering her daughter really should have just been like off limit topic in my opinion, but it wasn't. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah, Khanyi just makes in her confessional, I don't know why I keep distorting my face like that, sorry. In her confessional, she just talks about how, you know, this is her first time being a mother. This is her first time meeting Khans, and that for all intents and purposes, this is an experiment. And again, I'm not going to say I necessarily agree or disagree, but I think factually, I mean, she's making a fair statement, you know? So I thought that was an interesting perspective, and I did appreciate that perspective. So the next scene we skip to now is golfing with Andile. So Andile has invited his guy, Naked, and Diamond to come out to the golf course, so to do something classy. And, you know, Diamond and Naked are excited about it. So I thought that was really cute because, like, obviously they don't really, like, golf, and so they referred to it as like, you know, like, oh, we made it to high society. It was really cute. And they're just talking about women as men do, which I appreciate when men talk about women. It makes sense. And so, you know, Diamond being from Tanzania, Naked and Andile are asking him about how he is liking South Africa. And Diamond is just talking about how, like, the South African girls are treating him right. And Andile says that, you know, as the South African, I think he's South African, but either way, he makes a positive comment about how South African women treat men, which I thought was sweet, because he said that he's a happy man if he's dealing with South African girls. So I was like, okay, that's cute. So I think Andile asked Diamond, one of them, Andile or Naked, asked Diamond if he would be with a South African girl, if he would date a South African girl. And Diamond lets us know that 2 of his 4 kids that we know for sure are his children are South African, but that their mom, Zari, is originally from Uganda. And that's when we learn more about Zari being, in Diamond's own words, the most amazing woman he's ever dated, but they're co-parenting. Now, that was a beautiful way for Diamond to describe Zari, but there's just so much, that statement was just so wistful. It was so wistful. So I just was just like, all right, tell us more. And so, you know, the guys ask him about whether or not he still loves her, and he cannot give a straight answer. So now we start to learn a little bit more about their relationship and why it broke down. And Diamond kept it real. He and Zari were in a long-distance relationship, with her living in South Africa, him living in Tanzania. And it sounds like Zari did not want to move to Tanzania, I'm sure for various reasons. And basically, Diamond was lonely, and he ended up cheating with his ex, somebody that he used to date, but she got pregnant with his 3rd child. So it sounds like Zari had his first 2 children, and then Diamond cheated on her, and the woman he cheated on her with, he now had a 3rd child with. And so now the guys are talking about cheating. And I really love Andile for being like the voice of reason, because, you know, Diamond says he cheated, but everybody was trying to make it out like he was the bad guy. And Andile was just like, you were the bad guy. You cheated, you know? And Andile said anytime he cheated, that it was a bad choice that he made. So I'm learning a little bit more about Andile's character and his emotional intelligence, and it's absolutely there. Now, this is only episode 2, but I did tell you I was kind of biased towards him because between the swagger and the dapper suaveness of Andile, then he's also got, emotional intelligence and accountability. So I'm not about to be make this like a gushing session about Andile, but I did appreciate that. Now, Naked chimes in his confessional about whether what Diamond did, cheating on Zari, was wrong. And because Zari and Diamond weren't married. And so that was an important distinction for Naked. And he feels like the only thing Diamond did wrong was get caught. So that was an interesting take. Okay. Kayleigh, are you watching this? All right. So anyways, so now we cut to a scene of Nadia and Khanyi, and they have invited Kayleigh out so they can get to know her a little bit better. So they're going shopping. And so, when Kayleigh pulls up, she arrives. She looks really good. She is a football player, and her body is tight. Okay, she was wearing this black bodysuit. I think it was one shoulder. And I've noticed just in this second episode that Kayleigh, did she wear a one shoulder dress in the first episode? Because it looks like Kayleigh likes a one shoulder moment, so. But Kayleigh's cute. She's sweet. And so anyways, we find out from Kayleigh that she's been with Naked for a year and a half. And, we know that they're living together. And so now Khanyi, being Khanyi, wants to find out if she wants to marry Quentin. And Khanyi says something interesting because she says that now she's really good friends with Quentin, Naked. And she says that the way that they met is that they saw each other from across the room, and Kayleigh wanted Naked, but Naked wasn't interested in her. And I was just like, okay, all right. And she's asking Kayleigh, the depth of their relationship, is it deep? And Kayleigh's like, it's been deep. And she's like, yeah, you guys should have been married by now, having babies. And it's a lot. This is this conversation is just a little heavy in my opinion. I would be like, oh my goodness, what about y'all? What is going on with y'all relationships, And then, Khanyi is basically relaying to Kayleigh that Naked, who is divorced, second-time divorcee, is the marrying type, that he doesn't date, he marries to his girlfriend that he has not proposed to. So, you know what I'm saying? I was just now, we noticed that Khanyi is a beautiful troublemaker in my opinion, so far, just from halfway through a second episode. So I was just like, okay. So, and then now we cut back to the fellas. And so now we're on the golf course again. So now Diamond is talking about Nadia. And the guys are like, slow down. You was just telling us about how Zari is the most amazing woman that you've ever dated, and that the South African girls are treating you right. Now you're here talking about Nadia and what you want to do with her. So, yeah, I was just like, yeah, you really do need to, kind of slow your roll. But, I guess he's single, I think. And so we cut back again to we're back at the shopping scene with Khanyi and Nadia. And so Kayleigh is sharing with the girls that Naked tells her that she's insecure, and Nadia wasn't feeling that because she just felt like he's trying to chip away at her confidence and make her feel insecure for wanting certain things from him. And, she is basically expressing that she feels like he's not treating her the same way that he used to treat her in the beginning. And then we have a parallel scene because now Naked is expressing to the guys on the golf course that Kayleigh's always complaining to him about him not treating her the way that he used to. But for him, they live together. He cooks for her. He feels like the romance is in the day-to-day of their lives. So I definitely see what their storyline is. Their storyline is, will they go the distance? And where is this relationship going? Because from Kayleigh seeming like her options are open in the very first episode, to Naked's face in front of his friend, to now these two parallel scenes where he's on a guy's day, she's on a girl's day, and they're both talking about how they're just basically not on the same page. So we'll see how that plays out. And so anyways, once those two scenes kind of cut, we find out that, so when the ladies are together, they're discussing the party that's happening, I think later that evening. But either way, they're going to Diamond's Arabian Nights themed party. And so, so they're talking about that and stuff and how that's going to go. And then we cut to a scene of Nadia and Diamond on their date. And so now they're on the date at the dealership. They're looking at the cars. Like I said, I don't really know cars. There was a beautiful Rolls Royce, a Bentley, and I think what was the other one? Because Nadia felt like those were old man cars. And it's funny because those were the cars that Diamond was actually into. He felt like, that's his steez. So it didn't really look like they chose a car. There was a Hummer. I think it was a Hummer or a Jeep. I don't know. Look, I don't know cars, so let's just move on from this. But anyway, so they finally are done with the looking at the cars and the talking to the salesman. And so now they are talking one-on-one. And Nadia is upfront about the fact that she is in a relationship and she just wants to be friends, but that, she does want to have a relationship with Diamond because she would like to work with him and be able to create a friendship with him. And to be straight up, Diamond is undeterred, okay? So he is just okay, that's cool, but as far as he's concerned, the best man will win. So... And, Diamond is interesting. All right. So now that we've gotten past the date and we've gotten past the girls' days, Khanyi is now on her way to go and see Annie. So she is on her way to Annie's house. She's wearing this beautiful white suit. She's got green hair, I believe. She looked really nice, really sexy. And she gets to Annie's house. And so I was just like, I wonder how this came about. But straight up, Annie gets straight to the point. And she doesn't sit down on the couch because the suit that she's wearing this white tailored suit. So it is fitting her like a glove. Looks very nice on her. And she's not the suit is open in the chest area. So, her cleavage is exposed. And so she doesn't want to sit on the couch because Annie is you can get comfortable. And Kanye's just no, I don't want to get too comfortable. She just wants to sit on the edge of the seat because her outfit wasn't made for getting too comfortable. And she was just I wouldn't want to have a nip slip and expose myself so you chastise me again for being a bad mother. And I was well, let's get into it. And so in her confessional, Annie makes a comment about, look, like, Khanyi is just not an auntie who would be able to watch her kids. And so they're just going back and forth about, like, who's really the bad mom. And honestly, I just appreciated the fact that Khanyi was giving it back to Annie as hard as Annie was giving it to Khanyi, because Khanyi was just like, Khanyi kind of ate her up, because she was just like, okay, but we're doing the same thing, because you're here in South Africa and your kids are in Nigeria. And Annie was just like, yeah, but my kids are in Nigeria in their house with their dad and my mother taking care of them. And then Khanyi was just like, that means you're even worse than me. Because she was just like, if your kid is sick right now, can you give them medicine? And Annie's like, yeah, my mother. She said, no, can you give them medicine? Because she was like, my child's right next door. And so then, Annie was just like, if your child was throwing up, would you even know? And Kanye was just like, would you? And I was like, oh my goodness. But what I did like is that even though they were going back and forth and Kanye was giving it to as good as she was taking it from Annie, like, it wasn't any disrespect. They were just keeping it real. And I feel like it was good for Annie, again, to get some more perspective about, like, kind of just passing judgments, honestly, It's not that you can't have your opinions, but I think that it was good for Kanye to kind of give some perspective to Annie and let her know, like, she was just like, you're even worse than me. She was like, you left your children in a whole different country. And Annie was just like, yeah, but it's temporary. And Kanye was just like, it's temporary too. So, that scene happened, and it just seemed like they were able to go back and forth about it. I appreciate the fact that Kanye went directly to her house to talk about it. And, like, let's talk about it. Like, you have something to say, let's speak one-on-one. So, all right. So, we finally get to meet Zari. So, now we're in a new scene. And so, we see Zari, we don't know yet, but Zari is sitting down at a table and Kanye is walking in. This is after her meetup with Annie, and she shows up late to her drinks or dinner. All I saw was drinks with Zari, aka the boss lady. And one thing I will say is that Zari was really letting the compliments flow. She was just complimenting Kanye on her outfit, her hair. She was like, oh wow, you look so beautiful, your outfit is lovely, your hair is nice. And you'll see that Zari does that again later in this recap, and I'll mention it. And I like that about Zari. So Zari instantly has a fan in me, because she seems to be a girl's girl. Now, maybe I'm speaking too soon, because she did do something I didn't like. But anyways, we're introduced to Zarina, and she's introduced to us as a self-made boss who works hard for everything that she has, and, like, even her title is like boss lady. So Zari is known as the boss lady. She's a mother of 5. She has 3 kids from her first marriage and 2 with Diamond, who we all know now. And she's just talking about, like, all the things that she went through in her relationships, but that she's resilient and she has bounced back, and that her and Diamond are friends, and she's newly dating. So, we find out she's newly dating because Kanye asked her, like, what's going on with you and Diamond? And so that's when Zari, confirms that they're friends, that she's dating someone new. And then we find out from Zari, I think. Oh, no, because Kanye had mentioned that, there was a little friction between them, because Kanye was linked with Zari's ex, Ivan, and Zari's just like, I mean, there were pictures of you grinding with my ex, but she makes a point to say that she had a billionaire ex, so Kanye knows how to pick them, basically. So honestly, there wasn't any like heavy shade, or Zari and Khanyi give me two huge personalities, and it just gives me like that they both recognize the boss in each other, but also that they're both nuts. So it was cute. It was kind of a cute scene. All right, so and then before that scene ends, Khanyi mentions that she thinks that there's still love between Diamond and Zari, but that Zari just can't forgive Diamond, And Zari makes it clear that it's not about forgiveness. Her and Diamond are friends, but that he lost her. And that's it. She's moved on, and she's not looking back. So, well, we'll get to some more of how she feels. So now we're in the last half of the episode. It's Diamond's Arabian Nights theme party, and Annie shows up. So I think Kayleigh and Naked had showed up already. Nadia was already there. Andile was there, and they're all really excited. The party is beautiful. Like, there are belly dancers, there's hookah, there's entertainment. Everybody is dressed in Arabian Nights themed outfits. Like, the decor was beautiful. It's a really beautiful outdoor party. And so as such, excuse me, Annie now shows up. So Annie shows up looking gorgeous, okay? Let me just say that first. Annie looked beautiful in her outfit. She had on a headscarf. She had like a head chain. She had on a beautiful sparkly dress that matched the scarf, but it was a short dress. And so now going back to the editing and the way that these shows are produced, Annie has set herself up to be the complainer, because the moment that Annie arrives, we get shots of her complaining. She's complaining about having to sit on the floor because it's an Arabian Nights themed event. She's complaining because she wore a short dress. So, she's not dressed appropriately to sit on the floor. She's complaining because the event is outdoors and she's cold. And I'm just exhausted that Annie has showed up with her complaints. So I was just like, Annie, I don't know what to say, girl. All right. So anyways, Diamond now opens up his event. So he's giving us a little history about Tanzania being colonized by Saudi Arabia. But that there was some colonization that left some Arabic elements in their culture. So he's just expressing how the party theme is part of his culture. This is the kind of party he would enjoy with his friends, that it's actually symbolic to sit on the floor to kind of show like the humility of being, at the stature that he is, and that anyone is who might think that they're quote unquote like above that, but that they can kind of humble themselves to come together and break bed, seated on the floor. So that was just interesting context. So everybody is there except for Swanky, who now shows up fashionably late to make his entrance. So he walks in looking amazing with his cape. He's dressed the part, but you knew he would be. And so you think he's the last guest to show up, but it's actually Zari. So now we have Zari walking in last. She is the actual last guest, and she walks in looking beautiful, a vision. And Andile actually describes her as looking like a queen sent from the heavens. And so it's just so funny because, Khanyi is talking about how everybody's like, ooh, ah. And, everybody really, honestly, once Zari stepped in, everybody was fixated on her. She really did make an entrance. I don't know if she did that deliberately, but she was dressed in all white from head to toe, so she looked beautiful. And so when she walks in, she is her ever complimentary, just queenly self. And that is the vibe that she gives. So she comes in and she is just like, complimenting the decor, and she is complimenting Diamond. She's complimenting Swanky. She's greeting everybody. I don't even think she knew Nadia, and she's just like, she tells Nadia she's beautiful. Nadia, says she's beautiful too. But Nadia is not pleased that Zari has now walked into this party because, number one, Diamond is visibly blushing in Zari's presence. Like, he is like a little boy in her presence. It's actually cute, but I don't know what to make of it because he's a little boy in her presence, but I don't know if that's guilt. And so anyways, and Nadia is just questioning why Diamond would invite Zari to the party, which was kind of puzzling to me because I was like, Nadia, are you jealous? Because I think you made it clear to Diamond that you're in a relationship and that you just want a friendship, but you seem annoyed that he invited the mother of his children to this party even though he's not dating you. So I really didn't understand that, but like I said, sometimes it's editing. Maybe there's things that we didn't really get to see as the audience. And so anyways, Zari arrives. She sits down finally. She settles in next to Diamond, like the queen of the party, the madame of the party, and she, hands Diamond a gift. It's something from Cartier. It's in a Cartier bag. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. And the party was for him to celebrate, some achievement in his music. Like, I think he signed like one of the biggest deals or something. One of the biggest deals he's signed, at least, that I can remember. And so, yeah, I thought that was really sweet. Kanye makes a comment about how Zari knows how to treat a man. And I was just like, okay. So anyways, in Zari's confessional, she makes some comments about the modesty of the women. And now, in the context of her culture, because I believe that Zari is, that was Arabic, I guess, or something like that, because she was just basically saying, like, in her culture that the women were not dressed modestly, and like it literally cuts to like Annie specifically, because she was talking about how like their legs are out, and mind you, Zari is in a full caftan that is like from her neck to the floor, covering her arms, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So she was covered from head to toe. So she was definitely, judging. And I did think it was judgmental because she did say that, if it was up to her, the ladies wouldn't have been let into the party. And, Annie was already self-conscious about her dress. So that was one thing that I wasn't like a super fan of, but I don't know. I feel like context is key. So there is a theme. I do understand the point that Zari was making, but I do feel like, it was a little catty, a little shady. So, but I mean, who's perfect, right? So anyways, so they're all sitting there enjoying themselves. And then Baba calls, Annie's husband, Two-Face. So he calls on FaceTime. And when I tell you that Annie was like a giddy teenager. She was just bouncing. She was just so excited. She was like, my husband called. And I was just like, so first of all, there's something very sweet about the fact that she was so excited that he called and like, to talk to him. But I mean, given what we know about how he's mopped the floor with her heart, it could be sweeter. But, and Kanye and Zari made a comment about that too, so, not too much on Annie. It's fine. Move on. So anyways, Annie passes the phone to Diamond. So now Diamond and Baba are chopping it up on FaceTime. And, I think that Two-Face, Baba wanted to talk to Zari. So Diamond passes the phone, to Zari, and he's just like, and he refers to Zari as my Zari. So that was interesting, because I was like, he's immediately territorial. Okay. And anyways, it turns out that, once the phone is back to Annie's now talking to her husband. And he had actually texted Annie, his wife, to tell her to say what's up to Zari, the boss lady, which Annie shares with the whole party. And Zari does not like that, because she feels like Annie is being insecure, and she's displaying her insecurity, and kind of because Annie makes an offhand comment about how does Zari know him? And Zari was like, how does he know me? Not how do I know him? How does he know me? Everybody knows the boss lady. So yeah, I was just like, okay, that was a little something. So then now we cut to a scene of Andile and Nadia off to the side, and they're talking. And so Nadia is just expressing to Andile how she's just kind of irritated, because she feels like, she wouldn't be comfortable. She's not comfortable with the interactions between Nadia and Zari, and specifically how between Zari and Diamond, and specifically how Diamond reacted to Zari stepping into place, and him just being kind of blown away by Zari. But she does admit that, Zari is intimidating and drops it dead gorgeous. And so I did respect that, because I was like, she kept it real. Zari is beautiful, and I could see how she could be perceived as intimidating, because she is very she doesn't seem to be easily bothered or flustered. So yeah. But I will say that Andile was just like, girl, don't you got a man? And because he did straight up say well, look, don't be intimidated. If you want Diamond, go for him. But then Nadia was like, no, I want my man. And so Andile was like, you want your long distance man? And she was like, yeah. And he was just like, but you're upset that Zari, Diamond's former partner and the mother of his children. I'm trying to avoid saying baby daddy and baby mother so hard, so y'all are gonna hear me just kind of glitch a little. But anyways, is here at the party. So yeah, that was something. So now we have another scene at this party. Zari is off to the side talking to Khanyi. And so, Khanyi is just mentioning how once Zari came in and she was seated next to Diamond, there was just this palpable chemistry that everyone could see and feel. It felt like nobody else was there. It was just the two of them. And honestly, Zari says that she felt it was better to leave Diamond with his cheating and having 2 babies on her than to stay with him and be bitter, and that she is happier co-parenting with him. And that is very sobering. And so then there is a parallel scene, and Diamond is expressing, and I'm not sure who he was talking to. Oh, because Annie was there, Andile was there, so I'm not sure who else was there, but I do remember him talking to them, and he was expressing how he feels like he doesn't deserve Zari. That was the first thing he said. He said he does not deserve Zari, but then immediately after that, he says that she doesn't deserve him, and then after that, he says he feels like when he looks at his life, he has a long way to go. And that was just so interesting because, he did this on the golf course when he was talking about the cheating, where it's like, I cheated straight up, so he can be honest, but then it's like the moment that honesty sets in, he just doubles back, he just backs away from it. And so it's like, I cheated, but I'm not the bad guy. I don't deserve her, but she doesn't deserve me too. It's just like, Diamond, what is it? Okay. And so Andile gave him some pretty good advice. And this goes back to what I was saying about his emotional intelligence. He said straight up, don't try to go back to Zari until you're ready, because that is the best course of action, but also understand that if and when you are ready, she's not there, it will be your loss. And I felt like that was something that is just real for anyone in a relationship who is playing games. Because Diamond then goes on to express in his confessional after that scene where Adile is giving him the advice that Zari's a nice woman. He says that everyone in his life knows it, his family, his friends, his supporters, but he knows who he is and that he wouldn't make her happy the way she deserves. So that was, and you know, I feel like this is some of the most honest takes that Diamond has probably given about his relationship with Zari. So I appreciate that because he was keeping it very real, especially in that confessional. And so now, after all of these side conversations, we get this final scene between Diamond and Zari. So they are meeting face-to-face, one-on-one, and it's been a long time since they have had like a one-on-one conversation about their relationship. And you know, this was a beautiful scene because as former lovers who share a family, who have kids together, and for Zari to be the boss lady that she is, she straight up just asked him, like, do you miss us? Like, do you ever miss your family? Do you miss having a family? And it was kind of sad, you know, because I feel like she was asking like very vulnerable questions, and I could see the raw emotion between her and Diamond. And, you know, he was honest, yes, that he misses her, he misses his family, and then she just basically lets him have it about how he gave her away, that he did not protect her, he didn't lead her, like that she was looking to him for so many things that he did not give her, that she kind of felt like he left her out there stranded because she would literally cover for him, she would do anything for him, and so when people would say things, she would hear rumors, she would let it go. But it wasn't until there was proof. She could not deny it. It's in the blogs. Like, there's pictures and stuff like that. It's just like she kind of has to, like, admit, yes, there is egg on my face. And she just was like, you know, that you didn't protect me. You didn't cover me. And so that was a really uncomfortable conversation to watch because I could absolutely see the pain and regret in Diamond's face, and I could hear the pain in Zari's voice as she was expressing that to him. So that is how that episode ends. And I did like how she called him Baba T. That was cute. Baba T, Baba T. She's Mama T, he's Baba T. So that was really adorable. But yeah, that is the end of episode 2. And I'm really looking forward to hear what Diamond's response is to Zari and all of the accusations she's lodging against him about not protecting her, leaving her out in the wild to fend for herself, leaving her without water. And then I'm just curious to see a little bit more about Khanyi, actually, and Kudzi, because we haven't really seen anything about their relationship. We saw a little bit more of Andile with him, you know, organizing the guys together. And I'm trying to see, like, who else has. And we haven't really seen much about Swanky's life. So I'm curious to get into Swanky and get into a little bit more into Andile, and Khanyi. So these 3 characters, because I feel like this was like a heavy, and I mean, you know, they did introduce Zari, so I can understand. But overall, good episode. I am still loving it, and I hope if you're watching too, that you can share like your thoughts. And as long as, you know, we can all keep it respectful and just talk and share our thoughts. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.